Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning. It is August 15th, believe it or not. And August 15th means September, October, November. So we're only 2.5 months away from the election. And isn't that a scary thought? Um, we have Biden and Harris on one side. We have Trump and Pence on the other. On the Trump and Pence side, we have a combination of complete insanity, a corporate fascism, um, a social fascism, which is pretty close to Nazism when you start putting stormtroopers on the streets of of uh, the country, like in Portland and New Mexico and Chicago, and you lie about the reasons why. You know, they're supposed to be protecting, I guess, federal buildings, and meanwhile, they're far from any federal building, some of them, and they go out and they just start tear gassing protesters for no reason. Yeah, that is something that we used to watch back in when we were in school, and we would look at um, films of the Nazis back in the 1930s, and that's exactly what we saw. So I guess you can make your own uh, decision as to what your opinion, create your own opinion as to what's happening there. What's happening there, in my opinion, after living as long as I have, is simply a test of fascism and how far they can continue to push the envelope towards a complete totalitarian state, which we're basically in at this point. There is no habeas corpus. That was taken away in the middle of the night about 15 years ago. And that's one of the many things that uh, a Biden Harris victory should restore. I'm not one that's going to hold my breath and say they're going to do it because I have very little faith in Biden and Harris. But from 0 to 100, Trump and Pence being an incredible anti-Semite, an incredible, and he's in my opinion, a racist and a sexist and all the other stuff. Trump, I'm not sure what he is, except that he's a crook. And being a New Yorker and a person who grew up in Jersey and New York my whole life, this guy is a crook from the day he started breathing. And, he took Jersey City, made it bankrupt. It's been in bankruptcy on and off for the last 25 years. And Trump had a big part in that happening. Trump personally and through his businesses have gone bankrupt 4, 5, 6 times, and the people of New York and New Jersey have paid that tab over and over again. The people of Atlantic City are paying through the nose, paying with their lives because of what's been going on down there. This guy's a crook from day one. And talk about being qualified for a position. You know, when I have applied for the jobs in my life, there's a list of qualifications. Now, in the Constitution, the only qualifications for being president of the United States is that you're 35 years old and that you were actually born in the United States. Of course, now we have right-wingers, depending on who's asking. They're narrowing who's born in the United States, or they're expanding it depending on who's running and how it fits whoever's running on their side. But if you're like most human beings, you interpret the Constitution as a human being, and uh, you're born in the United States, uh, and you're 35, and those are the only qualifications. So you can become president of the United States being a crook, an imbecile. There probably have been plenty of imbeciles, uh, but and there have been plenty of crooks. But what's unfortunate is we've had so few really great presidents, to be serious for a minute. If you think about all the names, all the presidents, you list Washington. Yeah, everybody's got that list of Washington and Jefferson and Lincoln. And, in the 20th century, Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt. To some extent, some other people may add on Teddy Roosevelt, but, why? And then when you look deeper into the policies of all these guys and what they've truly accomplished, some of them are not as great as have been taught that they are, or really have done anything in the national interest. Under William McKinley, the United States magically went from being simply uh, a growing power to exactly what we uh, became a country, why we became a country, which was to end the colonialism here and start our own country and be free, whatever that meant at the time of the revolution, be free of the crown of England and to have our own representation. Well, that's what we're taught. But meanwhile, in 1898, just a little over 110 years after the Constitution was signed, we, a one-time colony, go out and take Puerto Rico without without the people's even knowledge that we were doing it. There was a group of U.S. troops landed just west of Ponce on the south side of the island, and bang, we took Puerto Rico. And we have, as far back as the 1820s, there were people in the southern part of the United States that wanted Cuba and had tried to take Cuba and to make Cuba a slave state. A number of those possibilities failed, of course, and a group of Southerners also tried to take part of, I believe it was Costa Rica, also during the 1800s, before the Civil War. They tried to make part of Central America additional slave states, and that did not work. They did get Texas, and they did get Louisiana, and they tried to go out to New Mexico, and actually there was an additional, after the Texas American War, the United States Mexican War, the United States actually grabbed another small bit of land on the southern part of California, Arizona, and New Mexico, called the Gadsden Purchase, and it basically was simply because of expanding railroads, and it gave land to the railroads, and that's really one of the major reasons why we took that. And here we are, a colony. We were a bunch of colonies, and we finally become a nation ourselves. And we supposedly support the little guy. We support the colonies over the bad guy, the mother country, father country. And then by 1898, we're the father country. We're the ones that are enslaving people and killing people and murdering people on their own land. And it was during that time, not including the American Indians, that's a whole different subject. The genocide of the Indians is it's a pathetic bloodbath, uh, um, and which is a whole separate item. But in 1898, for the first time outside of North America, the United States starts killing people on their own land, in their own country. In 1898, there was, on a very small scale, uh, we killed a number of Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico. In Hawaii in 1898, we did the same thing. It was basically a bloodless coup in those two countries, with very few people actually getting killed and very limited military, any kind of military or coordinated efforts against the United States, because the United States came in with such a heavy hand that there was no defense for something that we were doing, for the size of invasion that we provided. But the Philippines was another story. And that was also 1898. And in 1898, which almost no Americans are taught this in school. I wasn't. And I went to one of the very best school systems in the country. And I was never taught that the United States military, a number of Civil War veterans, a couple of Civil War generals, some new generals, some, and a lot of younger soldiers went down to the Philippines and killed and murdered uh, people defending their country against the United States invasion. And up to half a million. This is in 1898. This lasted until 1917, nearly 20 years this lasted. The Philippines did not want the United States to take over the Philippines. They wanted their freedom from Spain. They wanted to run their own country. The population of the Philippines at the time was somewhere between 15 and 20 million people. That's it. Maybe about 17 million people. That's all it was. And we killed nearly 500,000 in that size population. Most of them on the island of Luzon, where Manila is, the big island. And that's what the United States, that's the history of the United States. And from 1898 till this second, right now, we have been killing people on their own land, in their own countries, for American imperialistic reasons, for corporate reasons, for corporate profit reasons, not for freedom. We didn't give the Filipinos their freedom of anything. They were subjects of being a territory, whatever that is, because there's no such thing under the American Constitution. There's no allowance for perpetual territory in the U.S. Constitution. Read it. It's not there. So, so the American war machine from 1898 until this very moment has been just on a single line of bloodbath from one part of the world to the other. It has touched almost every country on earth. That's how widespread the American cancer has become militarily, on an international basis, both militarily and overtly through our intelligence agencies, which really act as extended arms of the military to a certain extent. They seem to act more and more with every decade goes by, and depending on what the political flows and ebbs of where we are in this country, of their own independence and their own freedom. They seem to have a budget that is completely protected from the citizens of this country. It's our money. We supposedly live in a democracy and a free country, and we're supposed to know where our money goes, my taxes. And I got to tell you, for paying for 45 years, I've been paying 45 years taxes to the United States. I wish every single one of the dollars that I put in, all the military that was used from my tax dollars, probably somewhere around 55% of everything that I've ever done, I wish I can get back, because that money was mine. And I didn't want it to go to overt or covert actions in South America or Indochina or the Middle East, or anywhere else, or in Africa or in Russia, uh, anywhere. So it's illegal. It is illegal. It is illegal under the Constitution of the United States for there to be even a CIA or an FBI. These kind of organizations, these secret kind of organizations, there was no such thing as the FBI until the 1920s. There was no such thing as the CIA until the late 40s, after World War II and the OSS, of which it came out of, in which it was born. And Franklin Roosevelt and Harry Truman at first both saw that a CIA, a proposed OSS, um, Office of Strategic Services, I think it was, uh, uh, operating after World War II, would become a fascist organization. And Franklin Roosevelt said so. He said that's exactly what we just fought against. And I'm not for that. That's exactly what I don't want. And that's what we fought against. So why would I perpetuate that? Franklin Roosevelt, if he had lived for another 4 years, there would be no CIA as we know it. FBI was created after World War One, and in the culture and atmosphere of anti-immigration, with an uptick in KKK during the 1920s, and that organization has been rife with corruption and going after the left-wing organizations in the 50s, really from 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. They've gone after, they killed King. The FBI killed King, the CIA killed Kennedy. So these organizations are as rogue as can be, as illegal as can be. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. Second thing I wanted to talk about, again, was presidency. We have on one hand, and the election. On the one hand, we have the Trump team, and on the other hand, we have, I guess, not the Biden team. We have the DNC team, the team put together by the Democratic National Committee and its donors. If there had been a free exercise of voting and corruption did not enter into the voting of and the process during the Democratic primaries, Bernie Sanders would have won hands down. He would have swept the being a candidate and swept the primaries. And I don't think he would have picked Tulsi Gabbard as his vice president, the congresswoman from Hawaii. But that's who I would have liked to have seen. So Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard, that's the ticket I would have wanted to see. They would be mature, they'd be active, they would reinstate New Deal in a 21st century way, and they would, through Tulsi, also being they would decrease the amount of military spending in this country and downsize our military, which is exactly what we need. DNC, we now have Biden. We have Biden and we have Harris. Harris, who has never fought for, or I shouldn't say never, but her main thing is not fighting for the little guy. Her thing is fighting for the corporations. It is her record that she did not put or did not even go after Mnuchin, who was the head of I think it's called One West Bank, where he keeps saying, I saw a couple of clips of him in front of Congress a few years back. I hate it when somebody calls me the king of foreclosure. Well, why do you hate that? You were the king of foreclosure. You were the king and the queen, and you were the entire court. You were the court jester of taking people out of their homes for zero reason, for corrupt reasons, to make you a profit. And you know it. Everybody else knows it. And the way you're running the Treasury, we all know it still, because you've just sent trillions of dollars to corporations and you've squeezed the little guy big time. Here we are, many months into the coronavirus. One check for $1,200 has gone out, not even a second check, one check. And on the other hand, the $600 a week that was supplementing people's income, 40 or 50 million people's income who've lost their jobs, and now it's cut in half. You're a real help, Steve Mnuchin. You're a real stinking clown who should have been in prison decades ago. Should have been in Leavenworth a long time ago. And you know what? I've been a banker longer than you have. You know, you're a real stinker. That guy has hurt so many people in so many different ways. So Kamala Harris, guess what? Kamala Harris took a large amount of money from him in campaign contributions. You gotta be kidding me. Again, I've run for office. I've held office. If somebody like Steve Mnuchin had given me any money, would have taken his check and ripped it up or sent it back to him or burnt it or rolled it up and made a hot dog out of it. But Kamala Harris put it in the bank. So we all know, that Kamala Harris is not going to be, any left-wing champion. We know it going in. The only reason why, the Trump team gets a 0.0 for the past 4 years, 0.0, which is equal to the Bush Jr. record of 0.0. the Biden-Harris team, just like the Clinton team, just like the Obama team, gets maybe a 1 or a 2, 2.5, because in the long run, the important things are not going to change. If they do, I will be incredibly apologetic. But I don't see it. It's not in their records. It's not in their blood. They are controlled by money. So, no, I'm hoping, I've been hoping, like, along with everybody else since the death of JFK, been hoping for something from the left. We have not really had a left-wing president, really. I guess you can call JFK a left-winger. I guess. And if we do, we haven't had one in the past 55, 60 years. All right, because I wouldn't call Clinton or Obama or Carter left-wingers. They were basically centrists, basically. And in many ways, did things on the right. Carter, to his credit, kind of, not completely, but did not send troops overseas in an overt way and start any wars. But it was under Jimmy Carter that the plans were made to put bases into the Middle East, which was carried out by the Reagan administration, and invasions of Middle Eastern countries to take place. All those plans were planned out in the state is in the under the Jimmy Carter administration. They were planned. Not that Jimmy Carter was going to do anything like that. I don't think so. But the government, people who worked there, did make those plans, and we'll get into that probably much down the road, a little bit down the road from, not today. So for people who are possibly going to watch this, or I don't know, but who to vote for? I think whether you're making $20,000 or $40,000 or $80,000 or $120,000 a year, married or single, family or an individual, I don't think you have a choice. I think you have to vote if you're going to vote. Because your vote might not count depending on what state you're in. You have to vote for Biden-Harris. And you have to vote, even more importantly, for the Democratic Senate candidate. The Senate has to go to the Democrats. If they don't, then an enormous amount of things will never change. And we have the kind of government where you need both houses and the president to sign off on stuff. So if we don't get the Senate, then there's really very little hope of anything. It looks like at this point we will. It looks like it. And it looks like to me, actually, that still at this moment, we're going to have a sweep of the Democrats and Biden getting somewhere in the 370 to 400 range, and maybe more than 400 electoral votes out of 538. I think he'll get pretty close to 400, and I think we're going to get Texas. I think we're going to get Ohio and Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. We're going to get back all the Great Lakes area. The Southeast, I think Florida, Georgia, North Carolina. So, and joining Virginia, the entire Southeast, except for South Carolina, will go Democratic. I think the only strong areas for the Republicans are on the empty plains of North Dakota, South Dakota, um, Wyoming, where there's no people. Idaho, Utah, Utah, Utah has a slight chance of uh, of going Democratic, but I don't think so. But that's where we are. I mean, that's how screwed up the Republicans have been over the past 4 years. They've driven so many people to probably not voting and staying home, or voting Democratic and holding their nose because they don't love Democrats, but they recognize that the guy in the White House and his team right now are such a bunch of morons and have screwed up so many things. And it's affecting them now. It screwed up their agriculture. The agricultural. What agricultural agreements do we have with anybody? I mean, you got to be kidding me. We're about to, Trump continues to beat the war drums on war with China, and on the other hand, he's saying, oh, we have the our farmers are making money on the Chinese deal. I don't think so. Um, the farmers are in big trouble in this country. I grew up in the food business. My father owned a number of food stores, a chain of food stores, part owner in New York. And we used to drive along. He used to tell me stories of when there was excess food, there would be the farmers would put them in huge piles and silos and burn the corn, burn the wheat. He saw it firsthand, and then he told me about it firsthand. I heard it. I heard it every day almost for years. And what's going on now? I mean, they had so much food. They had excess food. They didn't know what to do with it. And they didn't have the international markets that they do today, where the farmers could sell overseas. Uh, we did sell overseas, actually mostly wheat, but now there's a lot of different products that have been up until recently have been sold overseas, and a lot of agriculture has come here actually from all over the world. That trade, I think, is at complete and total and utter risk under this administration. So states like Iowa, I think Iowa is a purple state. I think is going to go blue. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised either way, red or blue for Iowa. There are 5 electoral votes. Nebraska also, I believe, is 5, and they actually are one of 2 states where every district can actually go towards that president. So you have 5, I think 1 or 2 districts in Nebraska that actually will go Democratic. And the other state is Maine, and Maine, they have, I believe, 4 electoral votes. I think 3 of the 4 are going blue, but possibly all 4. New Hampshire's going blue. The Republicans think it's going to go, or hoping, but it's not. There's too many people from Boston and Massachusetts who now live in New Hampshire, and that state, even though they may have a red governor or had one, I'm pretty sure they still have a Republican governor, or wherever Sununu is, like Sununu's kid. I don't know if he's senator or governor, but that state is more blue now than it used to be. There is nowhere that Republicans are strong other than the old Confederacy in the Mississippi Valley, Mississippi, Tennessee, incredibly Tennessee. If any state or a couple of states needed help from the federal government, it's Tennessee and Kentucky, and the idiots that are voting Republican there still, they're just taking their states down. And West Virginia, and that's about it. They have no other state that is in double digit that is a clear winner for them. Texas, Arizona, Florida, are all leaning Democrat. Um, Texas can go either way, depending on how rigged it is and who's controlling what. But the demographics there now, it's almost a clear victory for the Democrats. Uh, so we'll see. The expectations. So the expectations are that we'll gain 10, 15 seats in the House, which will really make it a strong Democratic House of Representatives. We'll end up with something like 52 uh, Democrats in the Senate, hopefully. That is not a big plurality, but it's enough. And they got to get rid of that 60 vote rule baloney. That's just crap. And there's no reason for it. There's 100 people there. Uh, 51 should get you the victory. And if it's a 50-50 vote, it's right in the Constitution. The vice president votes on ties. So the Constitution takes care of that. There shouldn't be a 60 vote threshold on anything other than a change in amendments. So that's where we are right now. We've actually hit 36 minutes. I can't believe it. So we'll end it there right now. Thanks a lot. See you next time.